What's a creepy thing that happened to you but at the time you didn't realize it was creepy until after? Part 2. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. So I was about 14 to 15 years old, home alone one night with two of my buddies. My doorbell rings around 8 o'clock, when the sun was down already. I answer the door and this guy is trying to sell something. I can't remember what it was. I told him my parents weren't home, which was the biggest mistake. After that, he proceeded to ask if he could come in and explain what he's selling. I told him no, but he insisted he'd come in, at least for a glass of water. I said no once again. He said he would come back around another time. Door closed, end of story. Me and my buddies instantly got a bad vibe after we shut the door, so we decided to leave and head to one of their houses down the street my house. We walked there no problem, explained to my buddy's mom what just happened. She was a detective for the local PD and asked for a description of this guy. We tell her what he looks like and then she proceeds to tell us it's the exact description of a guy that recently murdered his girlfriend and is on the run. So after that bit of interesting news, we decide to walk back to my house. As we're walking back, a figure walks out between two houses across the street. Lo and behold, it's that same guy. We keep walking and this guy is perpendicular to us walking on the opposite side of the street. As we approach my house, we start panicking because he's crossing the street. We open up my front door and my buddy decides to shouting, "Mom, we're home," and the guy hears it and dashes off. Yes, it was creepy in the moment, but the older I get, the more I realize how much danger I was really in. When I was about 7 or 8, my sister and I had some friends that lived right around the corner from us. We normally would just walk there from our house. They lived with their mom and their stepdad. Their stepdad was weird. Like he would sit in the living room crying to some gospel music. Whenever we went downstairs to play dress up in some old Halloween clothes that they would buy from thrift stores, he'd come down to watch TV while occasionally staring at us. We didn't think of anything at the time, because we were just innocent kids. One night their mom was at work, and their stepdad was watching over us. Their stepdad came down the stairs saying that their dog got out from their backyard. Now of course our friends started freaking out that they just lost their dog, so their stepdad suggested that they go walk down the street, while my sister and I join him in their van and drive further around and see if the dog got far. Well, we got in the van, my sister in the front passenger seat. And as we start driving around, their stepdad was explaining how important it was that we find that dog, because his stepkids really loved that dog. He then started asking my sister and I if we loved anything like how his stepkids loved their dog. We started telling him how we loved our parents and shit like that. All of a sudden my sister started screaming, "There he is! There he is!" Their dog was sniffing some bushes near the side of the road. So he pulls over, calls the dog into the van, and we head back to their now empty house. He thanked us for helping us find the dog, and told us that he had a surprise for us, and that it will only take a few minutes to get ready. So he walks up to his bedroom and closes the door. A couple of minutes go by before our friends come back in, saying how they couldn't find their dog. We explained the situation and that we found the dog, and that he was back in their backyard. We all head back downstairs, their stepdad having no idea that they were back. About 10 minutes pass before we hear their stepdad call my sister and I upstairs. We head up, and their stepdad was at the table with some pizza that he had ordered. We ended up joining him at the table to eat. But there was something extremely weird tasting about the pizza though. Something sweet, but kinda bitter, that didn't taste normal at all. Unbeknownst to us, my sister and I had been eating pineapple on pizza. It wasn't until years later when I realized I forgot the serious tag that I truly understood how creepy it was. I know I'm hours late, but I thought I'd share a little story. I was in 5th grade up in middle school in Massachusetts. We had this really cool substitute teacher that would fill in for a lot of the different classes and teachers. No, I don't remember his name. Just that he was maybe mid-20s, early 30s. He was pretty chill and laid back. At the time, I was around 11 to 12, and I remember having him for math that day. Well, it was the end of the school day, and I was walking in the hallway toward the stairs, and I heard him call me behind me. I turned around, he pointed at my waist and said, "I like the way you move your hips." Me being a naive and shy girl, all I heard was a compliment and I impulsively smiled and said, "Thank you." I only thought something was off when I turned back around and saw some girls look at me weird. Growing up in the golden age of internet chat rooms, I am absolutely positive that I was preyed upon, but I was too dumb to realize it at the time. It spooks me because I am worried for my future kids, but I feel like as long as I communicate well with them and try to control their access to that sort of thing, it will help. Honestly though, I am more worried about the people they will know. Teens are shit. I was maybe 7 or 8 and my school did a field trip in some woods. We played a tag kind of game that was meant to be educational. If someone caught the other person, they'd stick a piece of paper to you with a disease of their choice. Then you could spread that disease if you tagged someone. It was supposed to teach us about how germs spread or whatever. Both the students and the teachers chaperoning played. Several years later I found the papers with the fake diseases I'd been infected with in a box. The ones from other kids were all stuff like colds, stomach flu, cancer, etc. The fake diseases the teachers had spread to us? All STDs. They probably thought it was a weird inside joke between them, but I still think of that and wonder what the fuck they were thinking taping papers that said chlamydia and gonorrhea to 7-year-olds. I was a young Girl Scout when my troop went on an overnight trip, the USS Hornet, big old aircraft carrier, in San Francisco. It was wicked cool. My mom was the co-leader and came along as a chaperone. Being even more of a scaredy cat than I am now, we went to bed early while the docents told spooky stories about the ship. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling really strange. My mom was sleeping in the bunk across from me, and was facing away from me. I swear to this day that I saw faces in my mom's dark curly hair. Not human faces, just gaping mouth and eye shapes in the shadows. I was an imaginative child, but I wasn't even trying to see this stuff. It was just obvious to me at the time. Uneasily I managed to convince myself to fall asleep again. Cue breakfast the next day, and all the girls were talking about how bunk 11 was haunted. My mom and I were both amused at first when we realized that was my bunk. We'd had no idea until that morning. But I've never quite gotten over that chilly memory. I was super young, and so was my little sister. My dad took us around town to run some errands and had been pushing us around in a grocery cart through a shopping center. He needed to buy something really quick in a store so small, the cart wouldn't fit. So he left us outside to wait in the cart right by the store window. Next thing you know, the cart is moving and there's this older, very dirty woman who had her hands on the cart pulling us with her. As soon as I saw her, my dad had yanked us out of her grip. Oh, the cart was slipping. She said, I didn't want them to fall into the street. And that was the day my sister and I were almost kidnapped. When I was about 13 or 14, I got a phone call from my best friend from primary school. I had not seen her since then and we had a lot to catch up on, so it was great to hear from her. She then proceeded to tell me how I was at a particular place in my city that was very far away from my home. But the issue was, I had only gone there once in my life, and that was years earlier when I was still in primary school. I said, no, I wasn't there. She insisted and described and named a boy I was dating at the time. She said I was with him hanging out in this suburb. I was confused at the time but quickly moved on to other topics because we were getting nowhere. I wasn't there. Yes, you so were. Later on I realized how weird that was, when I had absolutely no recollection. It would have taken a whole day to get there, hang out and come home. Not something I'd forget. I didn't like the boy that much and was very cagey about introducing him to people, so publicly hanging out was not on our agenda. I have no explanation for it, and I'm 51 years old now. When I was a kid, the neighbors were a gay couple. Let's call them Roy and Bob. Being progressives and all, my parents never had a problem with that, so I didn't think anything of it either, though I didn't really register they were a couple in that sense at the time. Anyways, one of them was significantly older than the other. And I would talk with the younger guy, Roy, pretty often. I was one of those annoying kids who goes around bugging neighbors they see outside. One time he was telling me about some made-up character and offhandedly mentioned Bob. Used to tell him stories about it when his was a kid, so. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but years later I realized it kinda sounds like Bob's a pedophile. They'd been together ever since Roy was a kid. Neither of them were ever inappropriate with me though, and in fact Bob seemed kinda surly and I got the impression he didn't like kids much, so maybe I'm way off, I don't know. This whole thread is awful men stealing childhoods. Edit. There were 2 or 3 that do indeed mention women. Apologies for missing those. I was referring specifically to this thread and making no wider judgments about the gender of abusers. Anyone anywhere is and can abuse. Perhaps I have unduly foisted my opinions on the general public without providing nuance. Yes. However, I'd like to suggest that in all the Ask Reddit threads of these nature overwhelmingly it appears men perpetuate sexual violence against children. A virulent rehashing of, not all men. Yes, I know not all men, or, women do it too, I absolutely agree, doesn't make this observation false. We should be able to talk about what the bloody hell is happening without it being an automatic attack on manhood. Tangentially, if boys and men are experiencing statistically higher levels of abuse than seems to be represented in Reddit threads, why can't men share their abuse stories anonymously on the internet? Story of me being oblivious idiot. I was in my apartment in Brooklyn, pretty far out in Bushwick before Bushwick became the hipster haven it is today. Was laying on my bed in my underwear, I am a female, watching Netflix as it was my day off. It was spring, and I had the window open to let in a breeze. Both my roommates were out at work or classes. My bedroom had the fire escape off the window, this becomes important. Someone rings the buzzer. We had been bothered by those scammers coming around asking if we wanted to save money on our electric bill or some shit, so I didn't answer, as I wasn't expecting a delivery or any visitors. A minute and a half later, the screen in the window to my bedroom starts to move and pops out of the window. Next thing I know, a leg is in my window and someone is coming into my apartment. I, half naked and very confused, just sit up on my bed. I truly had no idea what was going on. So I just said, hello? And the guy bolts out the window and down the fire escape. My first reaction was, well, that was weird. Then I finally realized someone was trying to rob me and that could have gone much worse. TLDR. Dude broke into my apartment while I was home. I said hi. He ran. Some of my earliest memories are of me talking to thin air. I'd have conversations with people or objects that didn't exist and it seemed totally normal to me at the time. When I was around 1 to 2 years old, my family lived in a duplex house on Long Island. I remember talking to people that weren't really there. I'd get vibes from objects like wall clocks like they were people and they wanted me to talk to them. So I did. Sometimes the object scared me. Sometimes it wasn't anything, I just got a feeling like someone was with me. Turns out, for the entire time my family lived there, everyone has had strange experiences in that house, and they were mostly centered around me, which is weird considering I had 3 other siblings at that time. My little brother wasn't born yet. Apparently I almost died in the womb, and ever since I was born these weird things started to happen. My brother would see dark shadows dart across the floor. Apparently one time I rolled down the stairs in my stroller, but instead of falling down, it was like something picked up the stroller and carried it down the steps. My other brother saw it happen and he swears up and down it looked like someone picked me up and set me down gently at the foot of the stairs, unharmed, still in my stroller. The strange experiences stopped when we moved. To this day I'm convinced that my current obsession and fear of ghosts were built subconsciously from those days on that little duplex on Long Island. So I tagged along out with a friend to the bar and some of her friends. I have this rule where I drink 1 glass of water for every alcoholic beverage. So I walk up to the bartender and ask for a cup of water, which he obliges. Then just when he hands it to me, this guy who was in my friend's group starts to come up behind me. The bartender asked me if I was here with that guy, and I said that he was a friend of a friend. Then he quickly took the cup of water away from me and handed me a bottle of water and stated loud enough for the guy to hear that he was out of the cups for water. Later on that evening that guy was found groping a girl in the co-ed bathrooms that he had drugged. TLDR bartender saves me from being raped. I didn't realize the severity of the situation when it was happening, but in retrospect I realized it was freaking dangerous. I was 15 and we were on safari in Tanzania. We had stopped at a crossroads to decide where we were going and I went out of the car to pee. Stupid, I know. A while after I had come back in the car we noticed a lioness on the side of the car where I had been peeing about 300 meters away walking straight towards us. She went right up to the cars and I had never realized how big lions are until then. She watched us for a bit before walking into the bushes on the other side of the cars. It was only then we noticed that there, just about 5 meters from the cars, were the entire pack. We were all up in the excitement of seeing the lions and it was only later we realized that I literally went peeing 5 meters from a pack of lions. The car was between me and the lions so they never saw me. But if I had been standing just a few meters in either direction I'd have become part of the circle of life. When my friend and I were 16 we were dressed up at an anime convention in matching short-ish dresses. Horrible costume that looked nothing like the character. So when some guy who was probably 40 plus years old wanted to do a photo shoot with us, we were like, yeah, sure, because we were happy someone liked our shithouse costumes. Anyway, he asked us to come into one of the other rooms where it wasn't busy and asked us to sit on the stairs together and told us to pose certain ways with our legs. We somehow didn't think it was creepy until after he'd taken the photos. I'm pretty sure there is now panty-shot photos of 16-year-old us in some pervert's collection. When I was very little, I don't even remember my age. I would go to my neighbor's house a lot because there was a kid my age. He had an older brother who was probably mid to late teens, and one day he stopped me and pulled out his penis and asked me to lick it. He said, "It's a lollipop, it tastes good, just suck on it." Or something along those lines. I said no and asked to see my friend, and thankfully he let me go. I never told my parents because I didn't really know it was wrong as a kid. Looking back now I realize, holy shit, that's insane. When I was in high school I was homeless. I had a teacher who asked if I wanted to go to the store with him and maybe grab some things. I of course jumped at the chance. We go to a corner store with a deli in it and he gets lunch for himself, and everything seemed pretty normal until he pulled out some notes I had written, like poetry and short stories from over a year ago that he dug out of the trash. At the time I didn't see anything wrong with it. Now that I'm older I know just how inappropriate everything was. When I was about 6, my mom was driving me and my friend home from school. My mom had to drop something off at the post office, so my friend and I went in with her. Whilst she was up at the counter, we went over to the magazine section to look at all the Simpsons comics. This guy comes up to us and asks if we can help him find a magazine for his daughter. He said something along the lines of, "There's a specific one she wants, but I can't remember the name. I've got it written down on some paper in my car. Want to come with me to find out which one it is?" Luckily at this exact moment my mum comes swooping over, yanks us away from him and bustles us outside. She asked us what the man was saying and her face just dropped when I told her he'd invited us to his car. She went back to confront him but he'd gone. Creepy as fuck.